And let's go ahead and get started. This is a great segue, the background noise, with our quick how it works slide. And my name is Cassie Hogue. I am your webinar facilitator. I'm a senior consultant at MAP, which is a firm, Management Action Programs, Inc., that some of you are familiar with. I'm joined by my colleague, Michael Pizzell, who is an executive consultant at the firm as well. And I do encourage everybody to put themselves on mute. We will have a question and answer period at the end of this webinar. In fact, we're going to devote 15 minutes to that. So do keep yourself on mute until that time. I welcome and I encourage your questions along the way. Use the chat feature to go ahead and pose questions as they occur to you. And then when we go into the Q&A session, we will read the questions that live in chat and welcome others, providing we have time. Michael and I will do our best to answer them, as well as I welcome anyone to chime in with your insights. We'll go to a poll, and we'll do that right after we set the stage. We'll go to a pulse point poll. I have 2 questions for you today, and then right into our topic. And I'll give you 1 big takeaway, and then 3 tips that support that takeaway. And then we dive right into your specific questions. So again, a quick reminder, put yourself on mute, please, everybody. And in fact, I will do that right now just to make sure we have good audio quality. Okay. And then I will take y'all mute when we get to Q&A. So let's go ahead and dive in. Here is the key takeaway, and we're talking about differentiating between a stressor and a catalyst for positive change. That's our topic. Let's set it up with some key questions. What I've done is I've found a list of stressors that are most evident across all industries in the US. And this was composed by the CDC. And so I will start a poll in a moment, and I'm going to ask you to answer 2 questions. The first one is, of the list of stressors that the CDC has compiled, which ones do you feel most frequently? Okay, so that's the first question. Then I want you to turn your attention to the team you work with, your colleagues, those who report to you, those who surround you, and answer the question again. It's going to be the same list of stressors, yet they may feel stressed differently than you do. In some cases, they will. So when I open the poll, you'll have the list. I want you to choose as many as you feel in question number 1 and answer to question number 2, and then as many of those that your team feels in question number 2. So with that, let me open up the poll. And here we go. You should be able to see both questions now. First, answer relative to yourself, and then answer relative to your team.
So obviously, both are kind of talking about this. How does your...
Okay, we had some background noise, so I muted everybody again. So go ahead and choose as many of the stressors as are appropriate for you first in question number 1, and then move to question number 2. And go ahead and answer that. Okay, we're starting to see some of the returns come in. And we have 18 people participating. Some of you are just observing, so I'm going to keep this open until I see that most of you have logged in. And when you're finished with question number 1, go ahead and move to question number 2. Looks like 8 people have voted so far. So yeah, now 9 people. Let's go ahead and get a couple more of you in here. Okay, good. We've got 10 of you voted, several more. Let's give it about 30 more seconds to get as many of you weighing in as possible. And observers, you're welcome to answer these as well, because we all feel these stressors or have familiarity with them. And again, the list of stressors is from a survey of industries in all sectors in the United States. Okay, we've hit the 30-second mark. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results so you can see them. All right, relative to our question number 1, which had to do with the stressors that you feel, you can see that I'm scrolling down, that the red bar is the most frequently cited answer. So concerns about exposure to the virus. Yeah, obviously. 67% of you said that that is a stressor. And then we can look at the length of the bars here. The second most commonly cited was this one, taking care of family needs while working. Yeah, that's important too. Many of us now have family members who have tested positive or gotten sick. Many have children in school or working remotely or a hybrid version, and that's very stressful for parents. And along with that comes childcare. Many of us still have parents alive who are much more vulnerable, or family members or friends who have pre-existing conditions that make them susceptible to the virus. So we understand these, and by far these are the most common answers. Concerns about exposure to the virus and infection, as well as taking care of our family needs. Interesting. Let's now scroll down to the answer to the second question relative to your team. And we get the same result. You know, I'm looking at the length of the bars. The most commonly answered or chosen of the various concerns is this one about exposure to COVID. We all want to stay healthy, and it's such a virulent virus. It's obvious that that's the number one concern, and then taking care of family needs. In the workplace, this is difficult, taking care of family needs for yourself as well as for everyone who surrounds you, because everyone has a different situation. So these answers will inform our discussion for the balance of today's webinar. So thank you for that. I'm going to go ahead and screenshot the 2 of them so we have them. And there we go. We got our answers, and I'll just go ahead and move on. Okay. Let me close that out. And here's our key takeaway. And it's a little bit of a secret, yet it is so true, that when it comes to differentiating between a stressor and a catalyst for positive change, the answer is that all stressors can be catalysts for positive change. Aha, really? This is a result of a body of research, and the research comes from very reputable sources: Harvard Business School, Stanford University, and the University of Texas Medical Schools. And in fact, there's a definitive text on this very issue that comes out of a professor at Stanford University, a PhD psychologist. So rather than me trying to give you guys a pep talk, this is the result of several decades of research. It tells us that all stressors in the context of business can be catalysts for positive change, all of them. Now, we do say in the context for business because individuals feel stress. We all do. And sometimes that stress becomes overwhelming and people get into ruts that they're unable to get out and they need help. And that's different. And as managers and leaders, we always need to have our antenna up for those types of situations. And we need to refer people when we sense that they need help to the right resources. So I'm going to put that aside for now, and I'm going to deal with these stressors in business. All stressors can be catalysts for positive change. And in fact, they're often the source of breakthroughs, of positive disruption, if you will, for us personally in our professional lives, for the team, for the location, for the organization itself, and sometimes relative to the industry. Stressors are often the source of breakthroughs that make us successful. So that's what we need to get our heads around. Okay, 3 tips to help us put this to good work. And we'll start with what's behind the tips, the why this is so important. And in fact, when I researched this subject for our webinar, I learned a lot more about this than I had before. And, stress is a form of energy. We know when we're under stress, some of us break into a cold sweat. Some of us feel like we've had 5 cups of coffee mainlined into our veins. Other of us close down. We have physical manifestations of stress. Sometimes we get short and we stop responding to people the way we ordinarily or naturally would. And what we tend to do is try to suppress that energy. And what we are instructed to do is to channel it and take that energy and use it differently than our default mode. Okay. You've heard of the fight or flight reaction to a stressor. This is a version of that. We can have either of those responses in the moment to a stressor. I'm going to, go at it. I'm going to punch it in the face. I'm going to compete. I'm going to fight it right away. Or I'm going to somehow remove myself from the situation. Some people go one way, some others, it's situational, yet there's other things we can do with that energy. That's why this is so important. We can channel that energy. We need to stop suppressing it and do something with it. That's part of the why. And when we do something with it, we often reach out and connect with others and strengthen relationships. That's a good outcome, obviously. Our brains actually are more receptive. Okay. We are smarter, frankly. When you read the research, we get smarter when we're under stress. Just everything is heightened. There are actual chemicals in our brains that make us smarter. And we can make good decisions if we're able to suppress the fear that goes along with stress. And then it also sharpens our focus, our ability to focus, our comprehension, our memory, which helps us make better decisions as long as we can remove ourselves from the distaste we have for stressors. I mean, who wants to be under stress? If we can remove the distaste, then and can appreciate the benefits if we channel it appropriately, then we're in good shape. So tip number 1. First of all, you need to develop your awareness. When do you get triggered by stress? Okay. So you need to know what your stressors are. You need to know when they occur, how they manifest, so that you can make the shift. So you ought to, in a quiet moment, think about, how do I manifest stress physically? What happens to me? And when that happens to me, what ought I do about it? We're different, yet all of us know when we get into that stressful mode, make a quick inventory of it. What is the evidence there? And then we're advised to slow down, even if it's a momentary slowdown, enough to appreciate that stress is natural, okay? In fact, none of us would be successful. None of us would be in the positions we're in as managers or leaders. None of us would be there if we had been unable to navigate stress. None of us. So that helps me, in fact, to remind myself of that, that it is part of learning and growing and being successful as a professional. So that helps. And this third bullet point about several ways stress could be helpful, well, maybe it'll help you prioritize better, help you make a decision that needs to be made. Maybe it will give you an opportunity to delegate. Maybe it will do a whole host of things that could be helpful to you. And then we're advised to stop expecting it to go away. We need to make the choice, and the choice should be, okay, I'm going to deal with this. And I'm going to deal with it by knowing my own stressors, developing this awareness keenly so that I can move forward. Okay. Quick tip number 2. Let's go there next. We need to cultivate a positive mindset. And again, rather than being Pollyannish and giving you a pep talk, what we mean here is the following. This is a choice, and it's a choice that you need to deliberately make. It's unnatural to make this choice. So you have to think about it and make the choice. So it's deliberate choice, and it's up to you to make the choice. Deliberate's the key word. You got to process it in your brain as a choice and then choose to make it positive. And this good outcomes only come from a positive mindset, because if you retain a negative mindset, you're going to get a negative outcome, or something that's more negative than would be the case if you switch to a positive mindset. And positive mindset just means that you're open and you're going to deal with it, and you're going to channel the energy. That's what positive means. I like this. This is actually a quote: view your struggles as inspiration versus desperation. The struggle inspires. It inspires a better outcome. It inspires a transformative change, perhaps, for you, for your team, for your company. And everything that you've worked hard for, it's involved struggles and setbacks. And that's the way life rolls. Stressors are a part of life, and we just need to accept them as something we can deal with in a more positive way to get to a better outcome faster. And here's your third tip. Your third tip is simply to source some strategies. And we've talked in prior webinars about the hows here. Get some perspective, get other people involved. That's really important. Break it into digestible pieces. And remember that innovation is found in stress. Okay. So in summary, rather than trying to differentiate, just get at peace with stressors can be catalysts for positive change. Develop your awareness, cultivate a positive mindset, and source strategies. So it's Q&A time, and I'm going to open up our chat in order to read questions. If you have yet to add one and you have a question, please do in chat. I have 3 of them teed up already. You're welcome to take yourself off mute because we will probably have time for questions other than what I see in chat. So here's our first one, and it's here's what this individual says. A lot of people go into denial or avoidance when they're under stress. So how do I get them to face the problem? Okay. Yeah, that's when you think fight or flight reaction to stress, avoidance would be the flight. And in fact, people who you know are feeling the stress sometimes say, when you ask, no, I'm not, I'm fine. Or they say some version of, I don't want to talk about it. So what should you do? I think in that case, it takes a lot of empathy, meaning you have to be ready to, first of all, acknowledge their answer to your question when they deny or when they demonstrate somehow avoidance. So you need to acknowledge that and then help them understand the why behind solving the problem or addressing the issue. And you might characterize it as something that's important to you and to others around them. And just make sure that you have a discussion with them about that. They still may be unwilling to personalize it, yet if you can amplify its importance to you and to the people around this individual or this group of people, then they'll start to come around to being helpful relative to addressing it and sharing their true feelings. You also need to be highly supportive beyond the empathy and the acknowledgement. You need to be supportive. You need to reassure them that, that all answers are welcome, that you are open-minded to their perspective, and that you have their back. And when they feel comfortable, then they will start dealing with it. So it takes some patience to do that. Okay, so we've got another question. This one says, you mentioned identifying ways stress can be helpful. Can you provide some other examples? I think helping people realize that, that we all face stress on the job weekly, sometimes daily, certainly monthly, quarterly, annually. We face them with projects, our construction projects. We face them all the time. So if you help people realize that it's just a natural occurrence in business, and give them a recent example of a stressor and choose one where they had success, you'll bring them around. Again, empathy and supportive posture are going to serve you well in this regard. Let me go to the third one, and I'll weigh in on it. And I know as I'm reading this third question, I know my colleague Michael will have some good advice here too. It says, what do I do when I switch to a positive mindset and others don't? I understand that question, and it's a good one. So here's one approach you might take when you switch to the positive mindset and you have resistors out there, maybe one, maybe several, maybe your whole team. What's really important too is acknowledge their resistance or their negativity. You need to hear them out, even if it frustrates you. That's part of the stressor, so channel it. You need to hear them out. So acknowledge first, then go to the why it's important to get to the other side of it, get to a good outcome. And then it's really important to share with them what's in it for them, how they will personally benefit. Now, some of them are going to join you along that journey, yet you might take it a step further and form whatever the issue is into a goal. You know, okay, here's our goal. Make it specific, use SMART criteria, specific, measurable. attainable or achievable, relevant, and time bound, do that, and then rinse and repeat. Michael, what are your thoughts relative to that question, or the other two? Oh, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank
Sorry
you.
about that. Probably one of the best ways to do it is if you have a team and you've got several people who have kind of transitioned to a more positive outlook, and you still have the naysayer or the negative person, is to just chat with the team and find out why other people have switched.
Mm-hmm.
And we call it team consulting, at MAP, but basically get input from other people. So you as a supervising manager are not the one kind of put in a position of having to necessarily dictate or put the pressure on the individual, but just use the team to provide some input. Ask people why they kind of switched from a negative to a positive mindset, and kind of relieve the pressure of the person so they understand that it's not just one person making a recommendation, me, for instance, and as a supervising manager, that other people are doing it as well. If it's just one-on-one, then simply just ask people why. Why are you feeling this way? See if you can find what the stressor is or what the core issue is, and just have them talk it out.
Yeah.
And get the information out. Sometimes it could be something you don't even know it is. It's not apparent.
Mm-hmm.
But communication is extremely important in this regard.
It is. So we have another question in chat. It's a good one too. Is it healthy to reveal your stress to your employees as a supervisor? The answer to that, I'm going to answer first relative to COVID and the pandemic. And I'm doing that because we've learned that as supervisors and managers and leaders, we need to do more of that during these unprecedented times than we ordinarily would. So the answer is yes, and especially now. It is healthy to reveal your stress to your employees, the people who report to you. In fact, it's vitally important. The way you do it is important as well. Hopefully some of the tips in this webinar will help you frame that reveal, so to speak. In other words, I'm feeling a lot of stress, team, and here's how I'm looking at how to deal with it. I've decided to, even though it is quite stressful, and in fact, it puts me in a cold sweat, it's okay to say those things. More so than we ever could before, we should say those things. It puts me in a cold sweat, yet I know that if we deal with it, that we will find our way through and we'll have a positive outcome. So let's take it piece by piece and see where we can go with this. And just start a dialogue. So the answer is yes. What do you think, Michael, relative to that one?
There's nothing more to offer. I think you have a good answer there. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, the pandemic tells us that the more personal we can get, more so than we've been prior to the pandemic, the more buy-in and retention and engagement we will receive from the people who report to us.
Yeah, I think actually when you do that as an individual, you're kind of making yourself vulnerable. You're letting people know that, yes, I'm under stress and here's why. And I think it sometimes will give other people a license to feel the same way, maybe share their own stresses,
Yeah.
It's just a way of opening up dialogue that we're all human and we all suffer some of the same stresses.
Yeah. It's going to feel a little bit awkward to be sharing your deepest thoughts and your stressors and being vulnerable, yet do it. It will be rewarding. And that was helpful. Okay, so we're at the end here. Great questions you all posed. Here is our quote to wrap up. And this actually comes from a guy named Abraham Tversky. He's a very interesting, accomplished dude. He's a rabbi, he's a psychiatrist, and he's an author of a number of best-selling books. And he says times of stress are also times that are signals for growth. And if we use that adversity properly, we can grow through it. And that's the point that our researchers make as well. And it's a good way to wrap today's Drive-By MBA webinar. We have one more webinar coming up. It'll be in 2 weeks, and our topic is how to channel your natural frustration and anger. So related to today's topic, I hope you'll all join in and invite your colleagues to do the same. For those of you who have attended 2 of these Drive-By MBA webinars, if you attend the 6th one, then you're in the drawing to win a free coaching session, virtual. And if you've been with us all along, and I can tell from the participant list, some of you have been, then you're in the drawing to win either a free coaching session for your team or his and her Apple Watches. So great incentives. As a result of today's webinar, from being participants, you'll get the quick glance tip sheet. You'll get a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, and you'll get the Zoom recording to share with your colleagues. So I'll close out. Thank you for joining us, and see you in 2 weeks. Bye, everybody. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.